Good afternoon, and a Happy New Year. Excuse my brief absence, if noticed, from making videos, but it's due to the dreaded C word, unfortunately. But it hasn't stopped me in between my moments of high fever, noticing what's going on the YouTube streets. It has been quite incredible. Actually, I'm not sure if that's quite the right word. At moments of high temperature, I did wonder, was I hallucinating? Had I entered some kind of twilight zone? No, it's nothing new, is it? What goes on here in the drama, banana, loony world, as we begin to see. But boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes, in my more moments of can I be bothered to look at YouTube over the last week, I feel, whoa, and words of that effect that actually can't be repeated. Now, looking at my photo today, no, I'm not going to talk about Doctor Who and the Cybermen, if any of you remember that. But that does beg the question, when they made Doctor Who and the Cybermen, did they use this instrument as a form of example in order to make one? For the Cybermen in Doctor Who were these robotic human transformations that had no opinion, that could not speak, unless they were told what to do. Now, I don't believe in that, obviously, that we are only allowed to be told what to do. But sadly, from what I've been watching, and many of you I know, we are being told what to do by people who actually really don't know what they're doing, in my opinion, and, as we like to say, many of us, allegedly. So my picture of choice today is what is known as a Scolds, Bridle or Branks. And this is just one example of many. I'll put some photographs up of some of them. And it was used to hurt and humiliate women whose speech or behaviour was thought to be offensive or unruly, and dates back to the 15th century. This particular beautiful example, with its twisted animal horns and haunting inhuman features, was what a woman would have worn and paraded in public. It would also have had a sharp metal gag which pointed into the mouth to restrain the tongue, like the bit on a horse's bridle. The term Scolds bridle was used as a legal term for women, and more rarely men, not surprisingly, who disturbed their neighbour's peace with loud quarrelling, gossiping, slanderous speech or brawling. It was illegal to use bridles to punish those charged as scolds, but nevertheless they were employed in Scotland and England by local magistrates around the 16th and 17th centuries, something earlier. And the practice spread to other parts of northern Europe, including what is now Belgium, where this bridle originates, this particular one. It's difficult to date precisely, but this one seems to be made between 1550 and 1800. So perhaps the Cyberman, just going on a lighter moment, was around longer than we thought. But I digress, because humour's much needed. The Scolds Bridle is part of a wider culture of fear and punishment for witches and prostitutes, or shrews, and other, quote, unconventional women who refuse to play the part of quiet, submissive wives. Shakespeare, indeed, used somebody called Kate, the character of Kate, as an irksome, brawling scold in his famous play, The Taming of the Shrew. And it was about two sisters, one who was sweet and quiet, and the other who they considered loud and cursed and shrewd. But because she spoke her mind rather too loudly, and was quite aware of what she was wanted for, which in those days was not for her own self or love, but for her dowry. An iron Scolds Bridle or Branks mask was mainly, as I say, for humiliation and punishment amongst women for speaking out against authority. And they would be paraded through the streets, as I say, and mocked and laughed at, and probably had rotten vegetables, if there were any available, thrown at them, and all sorts of rubbish, or even horse manure or whatever. The reason I put this up today is, as I say, because it puts me in mind during my last week of interesting moments with health and thoughts back to when last year I did a little video on the Scolds Bridal history, because it's all very well having freedom of speech or freedom of expression, and we're all for that, aren't we, folks? But the last few weeks, but especially since even New Year, so we're only a few days into 2022, the bridle has well and truly left the rails of sanity, it appears, in my opinion, in regards to a certain high-profile case on a missing child. We've got people running around from channel to channel, creator to creator, and what are they doing, a lot of them? They're using gossip and innuendo and stories that once upon a time we would have heard, talking to our neighbours over the fence, arms crossed, chests out, bosoms raised. And as these stories get told, each story is exaggerated, and basically becomes, it's hearsay, a lot of it. Facts are lost, ignored, because people want their opinion put across, regardless of facts and research and evidence. Since June last year, there's been some really good people on here in the true crime community. Perhaps not the bigger ones, the smaller ones, whatever, but the good ones, who have worked hard to try to find out what's going on with this missing child case. I'm not going to use the name of the missing child within this video, because this is about the craziness of what's going on. Whether or not you feel certain parties are guilty or not guilty, I here in the UK, like many in Europe and the USA, was brought up to believe that innocent until proven guilty is the law and goes to trial. And one of the things you know is that it takes time with complex cases for law enforcement all over the world to gather evidence, facts and research in order, if a case should go to trial or court, that the whole story, facts, not story, the facts, the research are presented in the proper manner, both for the person in front being accused of perhaps a crime and for the people who are saying, no, they're not saying the truth, and these are the facts found. And there is a jury chosen. In different countries, the selection of how a jury is done is different. But regardless, we are beyond the days of a lynch mob, a ducking stool, and all those implements used, people being hung from trees before the truth was known. Now, we're not doing that here, or some are not doing that here, literally, but they are doing it with the clacking of their tongues and their self-entitled arrogance and discourse on the fact that they believe this is what's happened. They don't read up on everyone else's factual research that's out there, if they actually took the time and effort and could be bothered. I nearly said something else then, excuse me. Could be bothered to look into it before spouting off to thousands on the internet, on YouTube, about what needs to be done. And if you don't agree with them, then basically get off the channel, get off YouTube, just be off. It's so wrong. It's so wrong. It's so dangerous that it's like a gang mentality. It's whipping up mob frenzy online. I'm stating the obvious, or the bleeding obvious, quotes, excuse my language, as some might have said in my family once upon a time, before the PC crew came around. We have so much freedom of expression, apparently, and freedom of speech. And no, I'm not an old fart. I'm a human being who's experienced a lot and grew up in a time where perhaps things were said that shouldn't be said and lessons had to be learnt. But sometimes, just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. You need to use your brain. You need to think before you spout off or clatter away at the keyboard in your basement or your living room to supposedly, quote, inspire people to follow you to a place to, quote, protest against families. They ignore the fact that there's hard work going on by law enforcement and TBIs and FBIs and whatever you want to call it, depending on what the case is. And this one particular case, it's the TBI. They're ignoring all the fact that this is being worked on continuously, solidly, quietly. And the fact that they are not releasing information does not mean they are not working on a case. And it is not beholden to certain YouTubers to band together like some kind of weird supposed Robin Hood band of men or women and or both to go down streaming in their cavalcade of cars and flights to on aeroplanes to discuss to try to trespass onto property in order to gather evidence when law enforcements and FBI divers etc have been on said land and done countless searches using up-to-date modern technology, hundreds of people, satellite, you name it, drone and footage, they've done it. I'm not saying we can't all speculate to a certain degree, because we all want to know what's happened to a missing child. But the gossip and the scolding and berating of other YouTubers on other YouTubers and everyone else has gone off the Richter scale into a whole stratosphere, into another universe of sheer lunacy. And we had a night of it the other night. From what I could tell, I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'll pop that on and have a look, see what's going on, and yikes, boy oh boy, the drama, the gossip, the conspiracy theories. Now, I don't mind watching some conspiracy theory issues, channels, whatever you want to call them, because sometimes conspiracy actually isn't conspiracy. It can have a kernel of truth behind it. So it's important to sort of pop everywhere, but use your sense, use your brain. Yes, take away some of the information and then research and look into it, and the key word is research. Fact find. Use tact. Stop shrieking and scolding each other. We don't need to bring back a Scolds bridle, literally, although actually you can still buy them on eBay, ironically, and in auction houses all over the world. And I'm currently wondering whether that might not be a bad idea, but metaphorically, we need to pop on our Scolds bridles without piercing our tongues, literally, with horrible instruments. We need to think before we open our gobs. Yeah, that's a term we use here in the UK. Gobs, mouths, whatever, cockney, whatever you want to call it. We need to engage our brains and think before we speak. And if you're a creator, and even if you only have a few people listening to you, or you have thousands, you need to think that it's not just the one or two that might be listening to what you're saying and your opinions. There are many who listen and watch and lurk, some for good reasons and because they're gathering research, like myself, but some because they enjoy being keyboard warriors and whipping up fury and gossip and hurting people. And people are getting hurt daily by the gossip. So try to curb yourselves, folks. Sorry to lecture you. I'm not lecturing anyone particularly. I try to think, as my name says, before I type or speak. But the crazy's crazy, off the scale. And at this point, the Cybermen seem quite logical. Not really, but that's just my weird sense of humour. So let's rein it in. Let's try not to think that everybody in this particular case is somehow connected by birth, by another country's power, which I heard the other day. Just try to think before we do things. Rein it in, go back to the start, work logically. work on the facts given out. Try to be cordial to each other. We're only a few days into 2022, I said earlier, and already the wheels have fallen off the bus, the cheese are falling off the crackers, etc., etc. So put your Scolds bridles away and your gossip and your ducking stools and think about it before we speak. We need to, in order to get justice for a missing child and for the many missing children and people out there. Boy, oh boy, do we need it. So take care and a belated Happy New Year to you all. Speak soon. We may be 4 days into the new year, but it's worth a shot. Take care. Carrie Pink.